Well, tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Ata Māori everyone, and welcome to Amotai Live this morning. It looks like this is a hot topic for people. We've got quite a few on board, and Gail is assisting me today, part of our Amotai team, just to admit people as we go. I'm just going to open our time. We always think to our wonderful whakatauki when we think of he aha te mea nui o te ao, and how important people are. So to set the scene for today, I'm just going to do a quick karakia, and then we're going to launch into our day. He inoi tātou. Manawa mai te Māori nuku, manawa mai te Māori rangi, ko te Māori kaiau he Māori tipua, ka pakaru mai te pō, tau mai te Māori, haumi e, hui e, taiki e. So kia ora everyone. Today, one of the things in preparing for this, Ani's kindly offered to be part of our session today, was that one thing when I was thinking about this session is that employment law hasn't actually changed. Just because COVID-19 has come into the new world order, employment law has been there before, it's been during, and it is going to endure. And the other thing too is that regardless of whether you employ people now or in the future, people have a right to a safe and healthy workplace. And our last session we ran was around wellbeing, and that's a people issue too. So today it's my pleasure really let's just kick straight into it and welcome Ani Bennett. Ani, like many of you, are our valued suppliers. And some of the recent announcements around COVID-19, the support that the government's putting in place, will allow some of that funding, we hope, to go towards supporting employers to navigate through what COVID means to them in terms of employment rights and responsibilities. So without further ado, I suppose I need to also just mention I'm looking at some of the names. Some of you have joined before, just general housekeeping. Nice to see names and businesses if you're comfortable. Lovely to see faces as well. If you want to ask questions, I think most people know the drill, definitely put them in the chat. But Ani is quite comfortable, having done these many times, to invite your questions. So let's make this an open and frank discussion. So please jump in if you need to, and we'll be watching those questions as they come up. So over to you, Ani, and welcome.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa, te whānau nui o Amotai, nau mahara mai. Ko Ani Bennett ahau, he uri o te tai rāwhiti me te waiariki. So te taha o tōku kuia ko whanokau te maunga mō te awa apanui te tangata, ko te whānawa apanui te iwi. Taha tōku pāpa ko maua o te maunga, tauranga te moana, Ngāti rangi nui te iwi. So kei tauranga hau e noho ana. He roi ahau, ko te ture e pāna ki te mahi. So tēnā tātou. So kia ora whānau, my name is Ani. I hail from the East Coast and from Tauranga Moana, and my home and my business is here in Tauranga. I've been working as a employment lawyer for over 20 years. So I know I don't look that old, e karima, but I really am. And I've been out on my own practicing as a barrister, specialising in employment law for about 3 or 4 years now, but I've been doing it for over 20. And the reason I stepped out to set up my own gig was I wanted to work more for Māori, and I assume many of you may be in that position as well, but I'd worked in Pākehā law firms and for those establishments for a very long time, getting skills, and I had this few little group of Māori clients I really loved, and they were my joy, and then I had lots of other clients, and I just needed to do more of that mahi to be happy really and to have more freedom. So part of my gig, and I recognise a few names on this webinar today, is to encourage other Māori lawyers to set up their own gig too, because it's not actually that hard. So those of you that are doing your own businesses, nā mahara mai. Right, So I would like to answer questions. There's a whole lot of things that have happened under COVID-19. Changes happen every day, and the most recent change just happened a few days ago with the Prime Minister announcing that now those working in the education sector and most people working in the health sector are going to be covered by mandates to be vaccinated. Now that officially came into law on Tuesday morning, so kind of midnight Monday, Tuesday morning, the COVID-19 vaccination order got updated. And you'll see in the links that I've provided, one of them is a link to the actual order, the COVID-19 public health response order.
Gail has popped that in. I'll get her to maybe pop it in again in the chat. Yeah. It's further up above Peter's comment there. So you'll be referring a few times to those links, won't you?
Aye. So, and then the other thing that's been announced is, oh, by the way, when we move into the traffic light system and there are businesses that have to have use vaccine certificates if they want to have people come into their businesses, now their workers are going to have to be vaccinated as well, and we're going to update the law. So, about 40% of the workplace is going to have vaccines. Now, the key thing to know is you still have to go through a process with your workers even if you're under that vaccine mandate. You still have to work them through a process similar actually to a redundancy consultation process, which is effectively, this is what we're proposing to do and why, and here's your leader setting it all out. You have a think about it. You are entitled to go get some legal advice or support or union or whatever. We will give you reasonable time to do that, and that's a minimum of 3 working days, so you can give them that first letter, set up a meeting, invite their feedback. Some people invite feedback in writing, otherwise it's kanohi ki te kanohi, you have a meeting. You get this, are you willing to get vaccinated? Are you not? If not, then the proposal, unfortunately, may be to terminate your employment, but you still have to consider if that's the only thing you can do. Can you redeploy them? Can they be parts of the business where they won't be having contact with people, and so they won't fall under that part that says that these are the type of workers that have to be vaccinated? They're not the forward facing, they're not the customer, it's all that stuff. So the government has made it simpler, but it's still an employment process is the thing I really want to emphasize for all of you that may be going through that. Then there'll be others of you that won't fall under that 40% of people that of the workforce that have to be vaccinated under these mandates. Now, at the moment, what you have to go through is a risk assessment process to see if they have to be in a role where they should be vaccinated. So the government has promised that they're going to clarify that a bit more and put it into some new legislation and set out the steps that you do your risk assessment. But you can still do it at the moment. WorkSafe has, and it's in the links that I've sent, WorkSafe has some basic questions that you ask to try and make that assessment. The truth is, though, everyone's kind of making it up at the moment. So those of you may have seen, there are lots and lots of different types of ways people are doing those risk assessments and lots of different templates because people are effectively trying to create it themselves. Generally, I've seen quite a lot of tables, with ticking the box and assessing whether the risk is high or low, and then can we redeploy them to. But again, when you go through that process, you have to, it's like a restructuring consultation process. You have to put all that information to them, propose, look, we think your role needs a vaccinated person and this is why, and here's our risk assessment, and this is the kind of industry we're in, and this is the contact you'll have, all that sort of stuff. We're proposing that you be vaccinated. And generally you only have those discussions with your employees that say they don't want to be vaccinated or aren't. If they say, okay, I'll go get vaccinated, kei te pai, and you just encourage them to do that, and I encourage you to give them some paid time off work if they need to go get the jab, whatever you need to do. If they say no, then you can go through the process of, well, we've assessed your reason for saying no. You have to give them a response to whatever reason they give you, even if you think their reason is crazy. You still have to respond politely and tell them why, no, we don't agree with you. And then you can look at going, you either get vaccinated or terminated. So there's still a path right as at today of requiring employees to be vaccinated, but you have to go through that process. Or it may be a lower risk for you to wait until the government passes this legislation. I don't know when that's going to happen, probably in November, late November, mid-November, if we're lucky. And then you can follow that. So that's my, off the top of my head, overview of where we're at now. Pātai mai?
A question or a comment?
Kia ora.
So in terms of offering them alternatives, you could say you could offer, you can work from home if that's appropriate. You could offer, you get tested every day and then give us a negative COVID test every single day if you want, if they have to come into work. What else is there? Because you want to offer a good range of alternatives to show that you aren't just dismissing them out of hand. And that would be unfair, particularly if a daily negative test would suffice. So is there any others? Daily negative, work from home if appropriate, sit in the back of the warehouse.
PPE,
Yeah, masks,
PPE, all the requirements at the moment, social distancing. I don't know if a daily test will be practically available unless you've got the rapid antigen tests. So yeah, you have to show you've at least looked at those alternatives. And are they affordable for the business? Is it reasonably practicable for you to do it? Bigger businesses can sometimes redeploy people around, smaller businesses perhaps can't, You just have to show that you've gone through it, just like you have to do with any health and safety assessment. Or the other thing to be aware of too is that other employees who are vaccinated may be very nervous about working with people that are not. And or may be very nervous if the workplace doesn't have all those safety systems in place. So to protect the non-vaccinated and vaccinated staff, are you physically distancing? Have you got the PPE? So those employees that are already vaccinated, they legally can stop work and refuse to be in an unsafe workplace, and they've always had that power, right, under the health and safety legislation. However, if the workplace has done a risk assessment and shown all the steps it's taken to keep everyone reasonably safe, and it's provided that to the staff, then that vaccinated person that's saying, oh, I'm not coming to work because I don't think it's safe, they haven't really got a legal reason to refuse to come to work, because you've shown that you've done the risk assessment and you've put the safety measures in place.
Yeah. Kia ora, Jared. Jared's, for those who don't know, Jared's part of our Amotai team as well. Any other pātai? Annie, I might just, a couple of things when I was preparing for this. We're talking, obviously, the hot topic around vaccinations, but there's a few things around those requirements around pay. So are employers required to pay or require employees to take annual leave in terms of, in certain situations, and also around that normal pay? There's questions like, are employees entitled to be paid their normal when all the wage subsidies and support has been put in place? Have you got any comments around on that whole, with cash flow being tight for businesses, understanding their requirements?
Okay, so step one is, do you get the wage subsidy? Yeah? So are you a business that's getting a wage subsidy and it's 80%? That's step one. Step two, are you proposing that you're going to reduce people's wages to that 80% threshold rather than topping it up, right? And if you're proposing that, you have to show that you can't afford to top it up. Yeah. So that has to be part of your assessment. Step three, you can't just cut people's wages because you feel like it, right? So the fundamental idea of an employment contract is it's an agreement between two people, whether it's a company and a person or whatever. It's an agreement that two people have to agree to. And any changes to that agreement have to be with the agreement of both parties. You can't just have one person go, sorry, not going to pay you anymore. You're getting this amount. So you have to go through a process of getting your employee to consent to that drop in pay. Yeah? And you want to get that consent in writing so you can prove it. And that may even include, kia ora, Hōtene, you know that conversation that we had where you agreed, I'm just following up with that in email, confirming that you consented to it from this date to this date. Yeah? You need something in writing, because employment agreements say only changes in writing are valid. There'll be a clause in almost all employment agreements that say that you can only change it by agreement and in writing. So some employers have believed, and I don't know if this belief is around anymore, because this kind of happened first lockdown. The second lockdown, people seem to know. They've just believed, oh, well, we get the wage subsidy. Everyone should be grateful. We got we get to stay open and we can survive. Here's your 80% and be grateful for it. But it's not legal unless they consent to that. Now, if they say, no, I'm not agreeing to 80% and you can't make me, then you have to go through a decision of, okay, maybe that person, I do top up their pay because they're really valuable to me and I want to keep them and I can't convince them, right? You're allowed to talk to them about it and explain why. Or again, you have to go through, can I actually afford to keep this person at this wage amount because of my financial position? And so you'd have to go through, if you want to terminate that person because they won't take the 80%, you have to go through a redundancy process, like I just talked about before. So does that answer that question?
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are getting a couple of now. Shirley did ask if she can share those links, and you're happy with those links that were provided. And also mentioned she's just raised an issue around vaccinated people can test positive too. And I guess that's going to be concerns around this whole vaccination mandating. Ingrid, kia ora Ingrid, she's mentioned, can we make vaccines mandatory if we're not covered by the change in the law? Our clients have started making it mandatory to meet with them.
Yeah, so there's been some interesting kōrero about this in the news. There's been a survey of a whole bunch of CEOs recently, and 40% of them said, we're just going to make it mandatory. We're going ahead with that no matter what the law says. So I think there was a survey from the EMA. Anyhow, yes, you can make it mandatory, but you have to go through the risk assessment process, which is kind of what I was speaking about at the beginning of my kōrero. So let's use an example. I've got a client here in the Bay. They're a dermatology clinic, yeah? And everyone except the receptionist wanted to get vaccinated. And it was about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago now. Now they're a health clinic, forward-facing staff member, interacting with clients all day, runs around and talks to all the doctors and nurses. Yeah? Most of the clients were elderly or immunocompromised. Serious concerns about this person now telling them, actually, I'm going to wait 3 years before I get vaccinated now because I'm really nervous about it, and had genuine fears. Like, there are genuine fears because you only know the information that you've taken into your, into your own consciousness, really. Anywho, so that client went through the risk assessment process. Here's a whole, brought in a policy. We're looking to require you to have the COVID-19 vaccination, just like we're requiring our staff to have flu vaccinations, so brought a policy change in. But even if you bring the policy change in, you can't enforce it unless you do the risk assessment. So step 2, did a risk assessment. So lovely long document with 2 pages of writing about why we think we need to do this, and here's the background, and this is the, tamia. Then a table with, here are the questions, and here are the answers, and here's our assessment of the level of risk, and then here is our proposal. Yeah? So that's the kind of thing that you have to do. And in the links that I've sent through, WorkSafe at the moment has got a very basic, but the beginnings of a list, and it's the things are, how many people does the employee carrying out that work come into contact with? Very few, low risk, many high risk. So they've got a whole list of questions there. And then what you have to do is make it specific for your business, your mahi, you know. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is you have to go through a process. And another answer is this is really new and it's untested in the courts, and people are nervous about doing it because it's this new thing that everyone is trying to do. So really what you have to weigh up is, do I want to do it now? Or can I wait until the government actually makes this law change, hopefully in the next few weeks, which gives me a clearer legal process to follow and reduces the risks of a personal grievance claim? That's really what people are weighing up at as at today. Yeah. Kawa?
Kia ora. There's one also around, have you got a simple format for that redundancy? Is there anything in those links you sent through?
No, but what I have, one of the links that I've sent through is to employment, the New Zealand, it's basically a branch of MIMBI, but it's called employment.govt.nz. Yeah? And that website is actually very good. It used to be pretty bad, but it's quite good now. So if you go there and you look through and you see this is a redundancy and these are the kind of steps, and it's actually got really good basic information. However, I'm an employment lawyer and I'm really risk adverse. So I'm always like, go get yourself some good advice and go get some legal advice before you do this. Look, the rule of thumb that I found with redundancies are, if you set it up properly at the beginning, they can run really smoothly. They can be actually sometimes the easiest way to terminate employment if you do it properly and you've got a good reason. However, if you don't set it up properly, if you haven't listed all the reasons why, and this is the proposal that we're doing and this is the steps, it can go haywire really quickly, yeah? And it can result in a personal grievance. So yeah, go to that website if you're looking for some free resources, because those resources are actually pretty good. When it comes to people that provide this stuff, I actually quite like Employers Toolbox. I'm not associated with any of these people whānau, so I often use a lot of their precedents. They're pretty good. I quite like them. I do not like EmploySure. So if any of you are signed up with them, aroha mai, but I don't tend to like them. They were created by insurance companies that saw there was a lot of money to be made around the personal grievance space. So basically it's employment insurance with a few people on the phone lines giving you some advice from a database. So I find the advice to be pretty broad and they seem to be extremely expensive. So you'd actually spend less money going and seeing an employment lawyer for a few things rather than signing up with them. But that's my personal opinion and I'm going to stick to that. So kia ora.
Annie, I'm just seeing some good pārtai coming through. Now, Nina, thank you for your pārtai, because it was one that I was going to raise around a lot of our Māori and Pacifica businesses. We are unique because we bring our own tikanga, our culture into the way we not only deal with our clients, but also the people within our organisations. And there's sometimes with Missy this morning, I posted a link was saying, how do we empower our people to keep talking? Because that's one of the things we do, looking after people. So Nina has put in a pārtai around those of tangata Māori who have fortunately been brought up in our natural health system of rongoa, our waters, forests, te. What would be your approach to those in considering medicine given the COVID circumstances?
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of my best mate's mother, who's a professor at one of the wānanga, whose cousins told her they were going to use rongoa, and she told them to go into the bush and stay there until they come out. So, and she's Ms. Tuturu. But anyway, look, we have to approach these things with empathy, and the best way to bring people on board the waka is to talk to them in a way that works for them, you know, as it's a natural human response to talk to people the way we are, you know, because that's the way we see the world. And so if you don't really see the world the way I see it, you're a bit difficult, or you're a bit dumb, or you're a bit, you know, it's easy to, so the most important thing I found, and this is, you know, in my many years of being an employment lawyer, because really what I deal with is relationships, niha, you know, it's about what's really going on here that this relationship has broken, is trying to speak to our whānau in a way that works for them. So Kaylee has, there's, as Missy was talking about this morning, one of the Amotai whānau, there were ways, some of the DHB, some of the Māori doctors had put videos up to help Māori speak to other Māori about the vaccine, and, you know, in an empowering way, in a taha Māori way, you know. One of the links that I put in, it's very Pākehā, but it's really cool, was from the New Zealand Law Society. They did a free webinar the other day, and there was one of the infectious disease doctors giving a very easy to understand 15-minute kōrero about the vaccine and how it works. Yeah? I'm not a rongoa expert. I'm not a rongoa expert. And so I can't say, oh, well, you know, this is the way you should do it or not. We all have to approach it from our knowledge base. Yeah. What I will say though is, when I visit my urupa in Te Kaha, there's a huge section of that urupa from 1919 when the Spanish flu ripped through our rohe. Yeah? And there are large sections of all our whānau urupa. Even here in Tauranga Moana, down the road here in Bethlehem and Hangaro, where huge numbers of our whānau died during the last pandemic. And we still remember that in my family, you know. I still know the names of my great-great-granduncles and aunties that passed because of the pandemic. So when I talk to my whānau about those things, I talk about that. Yeah, so I hope that helped, Anna.
Kia ora, Ani. I'm just staying on this theme around how our values are quite important in the way we engage people to be part of our organisations. Rosanna, who I know, kia ora, Rosanna, has put up along the same lines. She's a rongoa Māori business. Her values, both personal and business, are inclusive of all people. So she's saying we struggle with this current mandate. Can a mandate be enforced? Can you explain mandate versus law?
Yeah, ngā mihi e hoa, ngā mihi nui ki a koe. I can see how that would be a struggle, but the mandate is the law, is what I will say. There's no difference. So the COVID-19 Public Health Response Act and the orders that come under that, and the current one is the COVID-19 Vaccination Health Order, that is all the law at the moment as it is. Now, there'll be a time where those laws will be, they'll lapse. They'll no longer be relevant because COVID-19, its cycle will have moved on. And really what we have to deal with is the reality of how it is right now, you know, I tēnei rā, right now, today. So right now, today, if you're a health practitioner, no one can make you get vaccinated because that mandate, you know, it's not in place. But as of the 15th of November, it's a requirement that you have your first vaccination if you're working in that industry or in that sector. And, you know, it's probable that your business as a rongoa Māori business will be covered by that and, you know, fully vaccinated by the 1st of January. And then what happens if you don't do that? Well, they can fine you. There's a maximum of 6 months jail. I doubt anyone's going to get that, whānau, don't worry about that. But there are enforcement fines and infringements, and that, it's the carrot and the stick. There will be consequences if you choose not to do it. And so all of us have to kind of make that call and adjust your business. Yeah, kia ora.
Kia ora, Ani. I'm just going to go back up to Ariana's online, who's our manukura for Amotai. So kia ora, Ari. She really is leaning back into, so what I'm listening to, and many of us that have employed people, there's concerns around when do we get somebody like you involved, and just referring to a couple of people, it's always, I think one of the powerful things of being in a network like this is we can often say to each other, who would you use? Who would you go to? And I'm seeing people mentioning employee, sure, that some are tautokuing each other and saying, actually, it wasn't as good as we wanted. And that's what we're trying to do is grow the business-to-business opportunities and people we can trust, advisors we can trust. So Ariana put up a question around where would businesses get support for the next steps around risk assessment templates, policies, consultation process, and who should be leading it in the organisation, the owner, the manager, the HR person. And I guess, although we've got checklists, there's still, they're quite generic. When you go to those sites, you often want somebody to right size it for you. So have you got any advice? Obviously, you're somebody that's there. There's others in our network that can provide the support, but what are the steps that people need to take and who should be leading this?
Employment lawyers should know what they're doing, but health and safety experts, if you've got a good one, they should also be up to date on this, all right? And depending on the nature of your business, so I know many in Amotai do construction, all that kind of that industry. Actually, your health and safety experts will probably, if they're good, have more of a process for you. In Auckland, the only other Māori employment lawyer that I know that specialises is Shelley Korpu for Shelley Korpu Law. There's me here in the Bay of Plenty, and there's Alice Anderson in Wellington. She's with Dundas Law. Those are the only specialist Māori employment lawyers that I am aware of. There may be others, but I haven't seen them at the huiato for all the Māori lawyers that we have every year for Hongaroa. But there may be a couple of others. Effectively, it depends on the size of your business about who's going to be leading this. The bigger businesses will have their HR people leading this now. The smaller businesses will have the senior management. It's important that the senior management is behind this. Like all things in employment law, it's about the relationship. You want to speak to people and bring them into the whānau and talk through it. And actually, many employers are kind of grateful for these mandates because now it's not you making them do it. It's like, oh, the government, these fellas, what can you do? So I know a lot of my Māori health provider clients have been quite grateful for that direction, just so that they can go, oh, well, it's the man making us do it, whānau, so we better get going. But yeah, really you want to look at someone that knows what they're doing, and so ask around to other people who you've had good experiences with. Yeah.
So Sarah's popped up one regarding how do we approach the need to be vaccinated? Oh, sorry. There's a few questions coming thick and fast now. Kōrero with potential newbies via recruitment process.
Now, what I will say is employers have tended to see this as a bit of an easier win. So with your current employees, you have to go through this process, whether they're going to be vaccinated or not. New employees can kind of say, well, here's the job offer, and we require you to be vaccinated before you get the offer. And, please provide proof of vaccination or, within a certain time frame, and you agree to this, and so it's easier. The thing to realize, though, is you can only require vaccination if it's reasonable for the role. It's kind of like we require you to have the flu vaccine before you have this job, you know, or we require you to be immunizated for the measles before you get this job. That requirement has to be based on something. So therefore you still will have had to have done some kind of risk assessment to show why. Now it's easier to put it in the induction materials, like the letter of offer, where here's the offer for the job. We require you to be vaccinated. If not, you know, we will withdraw this offer or you'll be terminated. You have it as a clause in your employment agreement. It is a requirement of the job. So have those built into your documents for all the new people coming in now. But if you're going to require it, you need to have some paperwork to prove why you're requiring it. What risk assessment have you done to require new people? Because there's also the Bill of Rights Act that people often talk about in the context of this discussion there. You know, it is your fundamental right to choose whether you agree to any kind of medical process or procedure or immunisation. Yeah. Another thing about requiring it of new people or even your current staff is, can I ask my employees if they're vaccinated or they intend to be? Yes, you can. You can ask people. They don't have to tell you though, all right? But ask, you know, have the discussion. But legally, they do not have to disclose if they've been vaccinated, if they're going to be vaccinated. They don't have to tell you. But what you have to make clear to them, and again, he who has the most paper wins, e karima, you know, have it written down somewhere, have it in an email, letter, whatever. You have to make it clear to them, if you don't disclose your vaccination status to me, then we will assume that you are not vaccinated. Please be aware of that, right? So that's part of the discussion that you have to have with them.
Kia ora. I'm just staying on that. There's another one from Nina around what about those who can't genuinely be vaccinated due to health risks? She's asking your recommendations around, do businesses have the power to still make them redundant given their reason is quite genuine?
So probably not, but okay, so step one of that is, if you have a genuine reason why you can't be vaccinated, that is fine, all right? You don't have to be under these mandate orders. And if you go in, if you are geeky enough like me to actually read the COVID-19 vaccination order, you will see the exemption clauses that are in there, specifically clause 7A. Yeah? So there are circumstances where, for practical reasons, because you can't get anyone else in the health sector, there are certain exemptions that apply, right? And particularly if it's a health risk to you to get the current vaccination that's available, then you don't have to be vaccinated. You are exempt from these mandates. So let's think that through. So we use a school. The receptionist at the kura, she's allergic to the vaccine, and so she can't be vaccinated, and she can't be mandated or required under the law to have her vaccinated and on the register and all that. But that employer will still have to make an assessment of, well, if Whaia Mere, it still needs to be the receptionist. Can we safely have her as the receptionist if she can't be vaccinated? Yeah? And so you have to protect her, or you have to go through a process of, Mere, we can't make you be vaccinated, and we appreciate that because it's too dangerous for you. However, we need our receptionist to be able to interact and have forward-facing contact with all these people coming in all the time. And it actually might be too dangerous to have you as the receptionist here at the kura. And we've got no other places we can put you. You have to go through that. Can we redeploy you? Can we have you PPE? Is it a screen? You have to go through and show all of that. So, yeah, you probably couldn't terminate them because they won't get vaccinated, but you might need to go through a process of whether you can actually keep them anyway because of the practical purposes of their role and how much danger they might be in.
Kia ora. We've got another couple good ones coming through here. Kia ora, Tanya. Tanya's putting up the pātai, how should we approach potential clients and participants if we're holding wānanga training workshops. Must we include our COVID vax policy risk assessment with potential tauira students?
Okay. So this wānanga is a part of the formal education sector that might be covered by the mandate or not, is my first question. Niha? Because there are wānanga and there are wānanga and there are wānanga. So if we say, for example, it's under a registered tertiary provider, wānanga o Aotearoa maybe, right? And you've got your noho marae and you've got your wānanga that you might be. Then yes, you will have to have your vaccine register. Oh no, carving wānanga. Okay, so it's not a formal one, it's a traditional one, right? I'd have to go away and check the fine print on the mandate around whether you'd be caught by the education sector or not. Off the top of my head, I don't think you are going to be. I think that would be a gathering, and then it will depend on the alert levels that require how many can gather, and whether you're going to be indoor or outdoor, and all those kind of requirements that are in place wherever you are in Aotearoa. Ne? But if you're not covered by the mandate, if you're not caught by it, then no, would be my answer. But don't quote me on that, because I'd have to go away and double check the fine print.
Kia ora. Another pātai from Simon. Kia ora, Simon. He's asking, does the current legislation where employees are required to be vaccinated cover potential future booster requirements? Or is it specific to the current 2-jab program? Good question.
At the moment, my reading of it is specific to the current 2-jab program. So the orders talk about your first vaccination and second vaccination if you're getting the Pfizer shot. At the moment, the government is talking about boosters in the future, but there's no plans in place. There's no deal with the vaccine suppliers. There's none of that has been solidified yet. My opinion, though, is that they will weave that into the current requirements once they've got that nailed down. So my pick is, if you're required under the current mandate, by the time it's about time to get a booster, they will probably add that requirement in.
Just staying with that topic, I guess we're seeing lots of level changes, the traffic light system, lots of announcements. And so it's, as an employer, as business owners, it's about navigating all the new information. Going back to the employment contract each time has a process. So is it our policies we're updating? Is it our COVID plans, health and safety plans? And is there some consistency in the employment contract that's a catch-all for ongoing future implications? Because, reality is, we're not finished yet. The government's not finished, it looks like. We're sort of crystal ball gazing as to what's next and how can we get our businesses in a position where their employment contracts, I won't use watertight, but they're in a position where it allows for those future changes that may be coming. It's just amending plans and policies and things that are much easier, I think, to manipulate. Got any thoughts on that?
I was going to say, what's that very long kōrero, Kaylee, the question in there. Look, I think one of the fundamental things to have in place is in your employment agreements, you have a clause that says, we have policies. You must follow those policies, and we can change those policies from time to time. And you agree there'll be consequences, disciplinary action if you don't follow them. That's a fundamental clause to have in all employment agreements. Yeah? If you have that clause, there are ways around it if you don't, but if you have that clause, what it allows you to do is update your policies as the world changes. And so that's how you can bring those changes in as we navigate these changes, as things, come in. I would recommend that as a fundamental thing to have. Now, if you don't have that clause, I recommend updating your employment agreement when you can, but you can still bring in policies. What you do is you present that policy to your employees with a nice cover page or an email or however you do it. This is the new policy. I've read it. I agree to follow it, and I acknowledge that there will be disciplinary action if I don't. You have to put in the consequences if you don't follow the policy, whānau. You've got to have that in, because if it's like, yep, I agree with the policy and there's no consequences, you can't discipline them later. Yeah? So I would say that is a fundamental thing you can do to adjust to that, because really, when you have a person that's already in an employment agreement, you can't be chopping and changing it all the time without their consent, yeah? Unless it's the government says we have to change your employment agreement. So policies are the best way to make those changes. Yeah.
Awesome. Now we're into our last 10 minutes, so I'm going to run down some of these questions. Ingrid's asking, can we request to see proof of vaccination when someone claims to be vaccinated?
Okay. If it is a requirement that that person has to be vaccinated, it's part of the current mandates, or they're about to be, or you've done the risk assessment and it's a requirement of the role that they be vaccinated and they show you, then yes, you can. But you can also say, if you refuse to give it to me, we will assume that you are not vaccinated. Yeah? And then we may need to look at a process to terminate your employment because you don't have this key requirement for the role, which is vaccination. So you can't force people to give you your medical information, but you can tell them, if you don't, this is what we're going to assume. And it's the same type of process when you're doing medical termination. Yeah, we don't think you're well enough to do this role. Please provide us with that medical information. Or the employment contract says we can require you to provide it. But if you don't, then we will make these assumptions. I'm going to say one thing before the next question, Ihuama. With this new mandate that's come out, it's the education sector and the health, large parts of the health sector that have been covered by it. But it's also people that work for those organisations or are contracted to work for those organisations. Or so those of you that may be in the construction industry or providing services, are contracting to them, it's likely that you will also be caught by those mandates. And that is something to be aware of. Like, for example, the education sector, what they've brought in is, if you are engaged to work at the kura and you'll be there during a time when the students may be there, you have to be vaccinated, right? So you can be the plumber coming onto the school grounds, and if you're coming on during school hours or during a time the kids might be there after school practice, you have to be vaccinated. So it will actually catch many industries that contract to those particular sectors. Aye, ka pai.
I'm just reading down. We've got Sherry and Carolyn have added a few things. I'm just reading down the various pātai. So Sherry, if you're still online, you're mentioning there around your first slide, you also involved in contracted by health and work in the education sector. Is the requirements within mandated premises different to the level framework? And I'll just see if there was anything else on yours. Oh no, you said the pātai was answered. Sorry, I just had to read down. Carolyn, you're working with recruiting people offshore. Do we set up employment incentive agreements and offshore agreements or NZ employment contracts?
I can't answer that without looking how you're structuring your documents. Yeah. And so I'd need a bit more background information on that. Generally, if you want to enforce New Zealand law on these people you're dealing with, you set it up under the New Zealand law. And so that would be New Zealand employment contracts. But yeah, once you get, I've got employees working in the UK and the US and blah, 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 those legal jurisdictions are going to cover them. So I suggest you get a very flash lawyer to help you structure those.
Great. Now, the last one there that I can see on our chat is from Tanya around, can our COVID-19 policies also apply to contractors and subcontractors?
again, that's going to cover, are you legally required to have, you see, COVID-19 policies? I don't know what that means. That might be PPE, that might be you need to be vaccinated or not. It's all those kind of things. So let's assume it's you need to be vaccinated as a mandated business and you've got people coming in and out. Then yes, maybe you will need to do that, but it's always the devil is in the detail, né? So have a look at the COVID-19 order because it specifies certain things. So that's why I use the example with education sector. It says if you work for those organisations and you'll be there during a time that the children will be there, then you need a vaccine. So if the plumber's coming in at midnight and working, that person probably doesn't need to be vaccinated. So you need to look at those things around your contractors and what the actual rule is for the specific sector that's covered. I hope that helps. Yeah.
Now we've only got 5 minutes to go, so I think it would be quite good now, Annie, if I made a few notes on things that you've been mentioning around making sure things are written down. It's an agreement between the two parties, so make sure that you're documenting. So could you use this time to the next 2 to 3 minutes, just real high level, what's the takeaways that you think we all need to keep in mind? We've got some resources that we can post out to people that were in the chat, but over to you for 2 to 3 minutes just to give the high level, wrapping it up.
I think high level takeaway is look to empower your staff and speak to them in a way that answers questions and allays their fears, and find out, give them good information, but keep it simple. You know, there's so much information bombarding people. Try and keep it simple, because if you overload people with information, they kind of freeze up and don't want to do it. High level, I would incentivize your staff to get vaccinated and let them know you can have paid time off work. You know, we can arrange all these things. This is why we need to do it. Be aware that if you're trying to change people's work conditions, their employment contract, things like that, you have to go through a process. So it doesn't matter if there's a mandate or there's a law change or all that. Like Kaylee said right at the beginning, employment law hasn't fundamentally changed. You still, the high level thing to always remember is you need to give people the information and time and support to consider that information, to give their feedback. You have to be able to show that in most situations, whether that's disciplinary, redundancy, consulting on a policy change, all those kind of things. Have I given them the information? Can I prove it? Have I listened to what they've said? Can I prove that? Have I given them reasonable time? Those are the things to step through. I think high level, that's about it.
Lovely. Oh, that's great. What I wanted to close out comments, other than thanking you very much, it's I see why there's only 3 wahine tour in this space. It's quite a minefield, so it's wonderful that we do have expertise like yourselves. But for whānau listening, that in the coming weeks, as the government's made announcements, there's some support there for Māori and Pacifica businesses coming. We'll keep you abreast of what is out there, where you can access funding for your businesses to be able to engage with people like Shelley, Annie, and there was a third one. I missed
Alice.
that one.
Yeah, Alice.
Alice. Should you wish to avail of those opportunities that are coming with some of these regional business partner and TPK funding and a number of other organisations in our Māori collab that we also work with. So we'll keep you in touch with those. So with a couple of minutes and to finish on time to honour that everyone's actually given some investment in a very important topic, I'm just going to close us out. Once again, thank Annie and everyone here for joining us this morning, and wish you and all your people the best in navigating this COVID-19, that they're safe and well. So he inui tātou. Kia whakaria te tapu, kia wahia ai te ara, kia tūriki whakataha ai, kia tūriki whakataha ai, haumi e, hui e, tāki e. Ka kite
Tēnā
ana.
koutou, kia ora.
Annie, if you were able just to stay online as people are departing.